everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Lit for Queers. I'm very happy to see you here. In case you haven't stumbled upon my first video, I suggest you go check it out to see what this channel is about. And I also gave 5 of my favorite queer books. So if you're interested to know my tastes in books and what genres I prefer reading, I recommend going back to that video. And I said in my previous video that I was not going to show a lot of book hauls or bookshelf videos because I mainly read on digital or getting my books from the library. And usually at the library, even if it's well furnished, you will find 1, maybe 2 books that are queer or like that follow the same topics, especially if you're trying to pick them at the same time. But this time, the stars aligned. And so I have 4 books for you today. 2 of them I've read already, so I can give you my honest opinion about them. And 2 of them are totally unknown to me. And the first book, we're starting off strong. We're starting off a bit sad, though. I'm going to give you a trigger warning for this immediately, so you can just skip along if you don't want to hear anything about it. Trigger warning for sexual assault in this particular book, and it's quite graphic in its description, so be aware of that. That book is Golden Boy by Abigail Tartaline. Hopefully I pronounced her last name right. Golden Boy is not a young adult novel. Don't get confused by the tags on Goodreads. It is not a young adult novel. It deals with teenagers, but it is not I wouldn't target it towards teenagers per se. And in Golden Boy, which is set in Oxford in England, beautiful city by the way, follows the Walker family, a family that is quite privileged in its upbringing, in its wealth. Both parents are involved in the legal sector in England, and in particular we follow Max, who is the firstborn of this family. Max is intersex, and him being intersex has always been considered a problem, considered an issue that nobody in the family wanted to talk about. So there's a lot of shame around that, and a lot of shame around him thinking that he couldn't possibly be loved romantically by somebody else if they found out about the secret. He doesn't really understand much about him being intersex because his family has never talked about it, and the internet is quite confusing for a 15-year-old who's trying to get actual scientific information on the topic. And the story kind of kicks off when something really bad happens to Max, and unfortunately he has to suffer the consequences and deal with the consequences. And one voice that we hear from in this book, since we see multiple perspectives, is that of his doctor. Max behaves very maturely for a 16-year-old boy who has not had any experience dealing with the pain that his sexual assault has brought him. He immediately goes to a doctor, and having the perspective of the doctor also gives us, the readers, more information, scientific, correct information on what being intersex means and what the options in a lot of cases are in terms of contraceptives and sexual healthcare, which is not something that it's talked about in schools because intersexual people are a vast minority of people. But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to know how to take care of themselves properly. And as I said, this book is pretty sad. There's a lot of that feeling of this poor person cannot get a rest, cannot catch a breath. So there's a bit of frustration for Max all throughout the book. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of that impulse for you as the reader to just shake people and tell them that they should pay more attention to this 16-year-old. And this is a portrayal of a family in crisis, a family that eventually does rally together in a healthier way. But it is also a lesson in acceptance, in embracing that you are not your child. You don't always know what's best for your child. You don't know as a parent who your child is fully. You're never going to know, as we don't know any other person fully. This is something that I've had to reckon with quite recently, the kind of realization that as much as you can be close to somebody, you're not in their head. You're not in their heart, in the sense that whatever feeling they're having, however fleeting it might be, you're not there for all of it. And people are allowed their own secrets. They're allowed to grow in a way that doesn't necessarily please their parents. And so I really enjoyed reading this. I think this is a quick read. The pace is quite fast. So I would definitely recommend it if you can get past the trigger warning. Going in another direction, we have That Summer Feeling. That Summer Feeling, despite the cover, which I really like actually, despite the cover kind of giving the impression of dealing with a young adult novel, we're very much talking about an adult novel. And this story follows Garland Moore. Yeah, it is a very unusual name. Who is a 32-year-old woman who has always believed in magic. So much so that she and her sister exchange sort of love bracelets and promised each other that they would exchange them once the other had found their true love. And as I said, she believes in magic and the magic that love can bring, up until her husband of 2 years serves her with divorce papers on Valentine's Day. And so we meet Garland a year after this has happened. She's been living with her sister and she's been trying to piece her life back together to understand who she really is and what she wants to do with her life. And we meet these two sisters as they're going to the sleepaway camp for adults. It's something that they've always wanted to do together, but never could due to their family circumstances. And so this is very exciting for them. But what Garland is not expecting is to run into the same man that she ran into at the airport 2 years prior as she was leaving for her honeymoon. And when she met this man, very casually, very fleetingly, she had a sort of premonition that they would live their life together. And so she's very shocked when she gets to this sleepaway camp, and this is the kind of like third person that she meets. But despite that, she also gets closer to his sister, Stevie. They're actually roommates in this cabin in the woods. And they get closer and closer. And what at the beginning starts with a sort of mission to get Mason to notice her and to kind of live a summer fling. Because if the premonition is right, then why not give it a try? But the more she spends time with Stevie, she realizes that she has hidden away a part of herself that she didn't even know it existed. And so I would highly recommend this. I really enjoyed reading this. It's again a quick read, and it's full of heart and it's full of warmth. It's full of summer feelings. So if you're quite sad like me that summer is ending, I mean, yesterday was so sunny here, and this morning we woke up with the rain. So it's kind of starting to feel like we're getting into autumn and winter. So if you're trying to hold on to those summer feelings, that summer feeling is perfect for you. I highly recommend it. And again, it's a very quick read, and I think I'm gonna recommend it in another book as well, talking about summer books in general. So these are the two books that I've read already. For the books that I kind of know almost nothing about, I did not read any reviews, I just picked them up, and one kind of is openly queer, the other one is hidden. Its queerness is less visible. But as I Googled them, I saw that the tags for one of them was queer. So I was like, why not? And that book is Devotion by Hannah Kent. It's super pretty. The cover is super pretty. As I said, gold just attracts me. And it's got this inserts of gold, which are beautiful. And Devotion starts off in 1836 in Prussia. And we meet Hannah, who is a young woman. She's only 14 when we meet her the first time. And she's realizing more and more that she doesn't really like what womanhood has in store for her. She doesn't feel like she gets along with the other girls her age. She feels like she's always on the outside looking in. And on top of that, her family are practicing old Lutherans, which is a religion they have to practice in secret. So when the family is offered safe passage to Australia, they take it. They take the opportunity. And around the same time as they're leaving, Hannah meets Thea, and the two immediately hit it off and get along really, really well. And I only know that the travel to Australia is very hard, very tough, and there's devastating things that happen to the both of them, to their families. It's kind of I'm not going to say it's generational. I think it's just focusing on Hannah and Thea, but it spans years and it spans continents. And it is supposed to be mainly a love story. So from what I see from the comments, they all praise the love story. So I'm afraid this is gonna make me weep like a baby. So I hope that I'm correct, because I feel like I need a new favorite. I need a new sad book to recommend you guys. So this is Devotion by Hannah Clark. And the last book on our list, which is a book that I have not read, as I said, is called Rosewater by Liv Little. Rosewater is set in London, and we follow Elsie. Elsie is a queer young woman who is very independent, very outgoing, very sexy, and she loves reading. She loves writing poetry. But she's also working a minimum wage job and hoping that one day she won't have to, that she will manage to live off her art. She's also filled with existential dread, as every millennial and every Gen Zer, I think. And she just keeps on hoping that things are going to get better. But unfortunately, they take a really wrong turn when she gets fired from her job and she has to leave her apartment. And so she turns to her childhood friend, Juliet, and moves in with her. And at this point, I don't know much about Juliet. I don't know much about what their childhood was like when they were together, but it seems like they get closer and closer the more they live together. And Elsie needs to figure out what she wants before it's too late, before it slips through her hands. And one of the last lines of the blurb here is that sometimes the thing you've been searching for has been there all along. Will Elsie see it in time? So I think there's an element of running against time. So there might be a deadline of some sorts. There might be this sort of not realization that you're in love with a person. So I'm really excited to read this one. The author of Patsy, which is another really great book talking about queer issues, Nicole Dennis Ben, says that this is a funny, witty, messy, and beautifully queer book. And so what do? Do you not pick it up? I hope I will have a full review for you soon. And yeah, so these are the 4 books that I wanted to talk to you about that I was really lucky to get at the library. And so these are the 4 books. I hope that either you've read one of these and you've got similar thoughts, or that you didn't know any of these books and you might get inspired to hit your local library, to download them on your Kindle, or to buy them. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one as well. Bye!